There is a hedge fund manager in Greenwich, Connecticut, worth $87 million. He flies commercial. His kids go to public school. His total monthly spend is about $19,000 a month. I know this because his own financial advisor mentioned it to me at a conference in Chicago. The kind of offhand comment someone makes when they're proud of a client and relaxed on their second drink. When the advisor had once casually suggested to this man that he could afford to spend considerably more, the client's response was 2 words. More what? That's it. More what? And those 2 words contain more financial clarity than most people spend their entire working lives searching for. Now, contrast him with a couple I know of in Austin who have $400,000 in their 401k and are absolutely convinced, dead certain, losing sleep certain, that they need $15 million to retire comfortably. They have never calculated their actual monthly spending. They have never pulled a Social Security statement. They have never run a single real retirement projection. They just know, somehow, that the number needs to be very, very large. They absorbed that belief from a content ecosystem, and that ecosystem had a financial incentive to plant it there. And because of it, they are working themselves into the ground chasing an enough that was never once derived from their own life. Here's what connects those 2 stories, and it's the entire reason I'm making this video. The distance between what retirement actually costs and what the industry tells you it costs is not a rounding error. It's a multiple. And that multiple is costing people, maybe you, almost certainly someone you love, years of their life. Real, irretrievable, you will not get these back years. So today I'm going to show you the actual math. Real spending data across every wealth tier. Real withdrawal rates. Real Social Security numbers. A specific portfolio structure that early retirees quietly use and almost no mainstream retirement calculator builds in. No hype, no motivational framing. Just numbers and incentives. Because once you see both at the same time, the whole picture clicks into place and the $3 million ceiling in the title of this video starts to feel less like a provocation and more like the conservative estimate it actually is. My name is Andy, and on Andy Explains Money, I spend way too much time thinking about the moments when the financial industry quietly profits from making people afraid of a number that has nothing to do with their real life. Today is one of those moments, and by the end of this video, you are either going to have permission to retire years earlier than you thought you could, or you are going to understand exactly why the number in your head keeps growing every year you get closer to it. I want you to hold one metaphor in your mind for this entire video, because it's the framework everything else hangs on. Your financial situation is a machine with a pressure gauge on the front. At the low end of the gauge is the red zone. That's where most of America lives. One missed paycheck away from cracking everything open, where a $1,200 car repair becomes a 3-week crisis. Then there's the green zone. The machine runs smoothly. Emergencies still happen, but they don't renegotiate your entire existence. You sleep, you make plans, you actually live. And then there's the far right of the dial. Technically still in the green, but you've been pumping pressure into the tank for so long that the needle has not moved in years. The machine is not running any better. It can't. It was already at optimal. Your life isn't getting smoother. It isn't becoming more comfortable. The only 2 things that actually care whether you keep pumping are your own anxiety and your financial advisor's fee structure. And as I'm about to show you, those 2 things want exactly the same outcome. They both want you to keep pumping forever. The whole point of this video is not to save $3 million. It's to understand exactly when the needle hits the green and then, this is the hard part, have the discipline to stop adding pressure to a machine that is already running. Here's what's actually broken in how most people approach this question, and it's not what you think it is. You probably assume the problem is information. You've started the retirement calculation a few times, gotten lost somewhere in sequence of returns arguments or safe withdrawal rate debates, and eventually defaulted to picking a large round number and running toward it. 7 million, 10 million, 15, whatever felt solid. The real problem is not that you lack information. The real problem is that the data source you've been handed has a built-in directional bias. And that bias was not an accident. There's research tracking actual spending across wealth tiers, not survey responses about what people think they'll spend, but measured expenditures mapped against real net worth. And the results are almost impossible to square with mainstream retirement planning content. Households with a net worth under $1 million have a median monthly spend of about $9,500. That's $114,000 a year. Real life, not deprivation. When you move up to households with 1 to 5 million in net worth, genuinely wealthy by any honest standard, the median monthly spend rises to about $15,000 a month, $180,000 a year. Nice house, good vacations, 2 cars, private school if they want it. A real, obviously comfortable life. Now here's where the gauge stops moving. Households worth 10 million, 20 million, even $50 million, people drawing $500,000 to $1 million a year in income, have a median monthly spend of around $25,000 a month, $300,000 a year. The needle went from $9,500 up to $15,000 as wealth climbed from 0 to 5 million. And then, as wealth multiplied by another factor of 10, the needle barely budged. Same grocery stores, same restaurants, slightly nicer versions of the same things. That's it. People worth $20 million are spending $300,000 a year. Not 2 million, not 1 million, 300,000. For most of them, the gauge hits green somewhere around $5 million, and no amount of additional pressure after that point moves the dial in any way their actual day-to-day life can register. Let me make this concrete with a story, because data tables don't stick the way a specific person does. There's a woman I'll call Patricia, because the CPA who told me this story asked me to keep it general. Patricia ran a regional manufacturing business for 19 years and sold it in 2019 for just over $4 million. After taxes and deal fees, she walked away with about $3.1 million in liquid assets. Her financial advisor, who had managed her business accounts for a decade, told her this was a good foundation, and then suggested she consider consulting work to build the portfolio up towards something more secure. His recommendation was $8 million before she should seriously think about retirement. Patricia asked one question: what does $8 million let me do that $3.1 million doesn't? The advisor talked about options, and flexibility, and not wanting to run out. Patricia pressed him for specifics. He didn't have any. She retired at 58. She spends about $11,000 a month. She travels 4 times a year. It has been 6 years, and she has not run out of money. Her portfolio, despite all the withdrawals, is larger today than the day she retired. The gauge was in the green at $3.1 million. The advisor either wasn't positioned to confirm it, or wasn't incentivized to, or both. Patricia did the math herself and trusted it. And in a few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact arithmetic that validated her decision. The withdrawal rates, the Social Security overlay, the 2 portfolio structure, so you can run it on your own numbers. But first, I need to explain why what happened to Patricia is not an anomaly. It is a design feature. The wealth management industry operates predominantly on an assets under management fee model, typically 1% per year. 1% sounds negligible. It isn't. Over 30 years, a 1% annual fee on a $200,000 portfolio costs you approximately $170,000 in foregone compounding. Not in cash fees you write a check for, in growth that never happened because the money was leaving your portfolio every year before it could compound. On a $1 million portfolio, that figure climbs past $800,000. On $3 million, you can do the math yourself. Now here is the specific incentive problem, and I want you to hold on to this one. If your advisor charges 1% and you have $3 million invested with them, they earn $30,000 a year from your account. If they tell you, sincerely or otherwise, and it genuinely does not matter which, that you need $8 million before you can safely retire, and you spend 7 more years building toward that target, they are earning $40,000 to $60,000 annually during that accumulation phase, and then $80,000 a year once you arrive. The financial incentive to inflate your retirement number is not theoretical. It's not vague. It's not a suspicion. It is direct. It compounds. It is baked structurally into the business model, and it is almost never disclosed in the actual conversation where the inflated number gets handed to you. A trust and estate lawyer I've worked with in Chicago, someone who has spent 25 years managing the legal and financial architecture for genuinely wealthy families, not theoretical wealthy families, actual ones, told me something I come back to constantly. He said, "The entire industry runs on fear. If people realized how little they actually need to live well, half of us would be out of business." He was slightly amused when he said it, not indignant, just casually acknowledging how the machine functions. And that's the version of it that stays with me, because it's the most honest. And yes, I know some of you have wonderful, ethical financial advisors who are genuinely transparent about fees and are actively trying to minimize how much portfolio you need rather than maximize it. To those advisors, I say, thank you for existing. I also imagine your client acquisition conversations are incredibly awkward, because you keep telling people good news in an industry that makes its money delivering bad news. Here's the reversal at the center of this entire video. You think the problem is that you haven't saved enough money, but the actual problem is that the target in your head, the one you're running toward, was designed by people who earn more the higher that target is. You are not behind on the math. You are being managed by an incentive structure that was never transparent about its own interests. The gauge might already be in the green. The extra pressure you're pumping in every month might be for someone else's machine entirely. And by the way, if this is landing for you, hit subscribe. The algorithm is not subtle or forgiving, and the only way it keeps showing you videos that challenge the industry consensus is if viewers actively tell it to. 2 seconds now protects your future feed from turning into a wall of shocked-face thumbnails next to sports cars. Let me run the actual math, with real numbers, nothing rounded. Take a married couple, both at full retirement age of 67. Both have worked full careers. One spouse draws $4,000 a month from Social Security. The other draws $2,000. That's $72,000 a year hitting their bank account before they touch a single dollar of investments. Inflation indexed. Doesn't stop when markets drop 40%. Doesn't care about sequence of returns. Just arrives. Every month. For the rest of both of their lives. Scenario 1. They want to spend $300,000 a year. This is genuinely lavish. This is the actual median spending of households worth $10 to $20 million. This is the ceiling, the most expensive realistic retirement almost anyone would ever want. At this income level, the effective federal tax rate is approximately 35%. To net $300,000 after tax, they need about $460,000 in gross annual income. Social Security covers $72,000 of that. The portfolio has to generate $388,000 a year. Using a 4.7% safe withdrawal rate, which is the upper range of what Morningstar's updated 2023 analysis considers sustainable over a 30-year horizon with a balanced portfolio. You divide $388,000 by 4.7%, and the required portfolio is $8.2 million. $8.2 million. Not 15, not 10. 8.2. That is the absolute ceiling. The maximum portfolio you would ever need to fund the most lavish, realistic retirement scenario most Americans can imagine, with taxes fully accounted for and longevity risk included. And that's modeling a spending level that fewer than 1% of American retirees ever approach. Now the realistic scenario. You want $15,000 a month after taxes, $180,000 a year, nice house, real vacations, 2 good cars, dinner out whenever you feel like it, complete discretion over your time. This is the actual median spending of households with 1 to 5 million in net worth. It is an obviously great life. Same couple, same $72,000 from Social Security. To net $180,000 after taxes at an effective rate of about 30%, you need roughly $257,000 in gross income. Social Security covers $72,000 of it. Your portfolio needs to generate $185,000 per year. At 4.7%, the required portfolio is $3.9 million. Round it to $4 million. $4 million funds $15,000 a month after taxes, in perpetuity, at a historically sustainable withdrawal rate, with Social Security providing nearly 40% of your income as a floor that is completely uncorrelated with market performance. And here's something most retirement videos will not tell you, because it disrupts the fear narrative. The 4% rule is not the how to barely survive a long retirement without running out number. It's the floor case. It was derived from the historically worst market sequences: the 1920s crash, the 1970s stagflation, the sequences that tested every assumption. In average and good market conditions, a portfolio drawing at 4 to 5% does not deplete. It grows. Most retirees who followed the 4% rule ended up with significantly more money than they started with, because the investment returns outpaced the withdrawals. The $4 million doesn't get slowly consumed over 30 years. In most historical scenarios, it gets larger. The gauge doesn't just hold in the green. It drifts further right while you live your life. Now I want to introduce someone, because the second half of this video is about a problem that is, at its core, not a math problem at all. His name is Marcus. He started appearing in my comments a few months ago, always some version of the same message. He's 52. He has $3.2 million saved. His wife wants to retire. He wants to retire. His stated target is $5 million minimum. His reasoning, when I pressed him on it, is that $3.2 million doesn't feel like enough. No spending analysis, no withdrawal rate calculation, no Social Security estimate. A feeling. A feeling that, as I'm going to show you in a minute, is wrong in a specific, quantifiable, year-costing way. I've been running Marcus's numbers in the background since his first comment. I'll show you what they say at the end of the video. But first, I need to walk you through the early retirement math, because this is where people either save or lose several years of their working life. Here's a pattern interrupt before I continue, because I want you to sit with it for a second. The average American works for 47 years. The average American retirement lasts 18 years. You are literally planning to spend more years working than you will spend in retirement. And the operational reason, the thing that actually causes this, is usually a number that was not derived from your real spending, your real Social Security timing, or your real withdrawal rate. It was absorbed, passively, from a content ecosystem that profits from your uncertainty. 47 years of work for 18 years of retirement, and people are voluntarily extending the work side because they're afraid the number isn't big enough. The number that nobody ever derived from their own actual life. Most retirement planning assumes you retire at 67 and Social Security starts immediately. But what if you want to retire at 55? Most people assume the portfolio requirement jumps dramatically. It does get harder, but not dramatically, not if you use the right structure. Here's the framework. I call it the two-tank strategy. And I think it's the single most useful mental model I can hand you for thinking about early retirement. Every early retirement plan needs to solve two different problems with two different pools of money. Tank 1 is your bridge fund. Its only job is to cover your living expenses for the specific window between the day you retire and the day Social Security kicks in, usually 10 years or less. Tank 2 is your long-term fund. Its job is to grow, untouched, during the bridge decade, and then carry you through the rest of retirement once Social Security starts filling the floor. And here's the part almost nobody gets right. Because Tank 1 has a fixed 10-year endpoint, you can apply a dramatically higher withdrawal rate to it than you would to a 30-year portfolio. The sequence of returns risk that makes 4% conservative over 30 years is dramatically reduced when you have a defined, finite window. Research on finite horizon portfolios supports withdrawal rates of 8 to 10% over a 10-year window. Let's use 9% for the math. Let me make this concrete. You are 45 years old, married. Combined household income around $200,000 a year. You have $1.2 million saved across your 401ks and IRAs. You want to retire at 55. You currently spend about $120,000 a year and expect to spend $140,000 in retirement. A bit more because you'll have free time, a bit less because the mortgage will be paid off. If your portfolio grows at 7% annually for the next 10 years, which is conservative for a diversified equity-heavy allocation, and you keep contributing $35,000 a year, including the employer match, you will reach approximately $3.7 million at age 55. Split that into 2 tanks. $1.6 million goes into the bridge fund, drawing at 9% per year, covers $140,000 after taxes for the full 10-year window. The remaining $2.1 million goes into tank 2, left alone, grows at 6% for a decade, and reaches approximately $3.75 million by the time you're 65. At 65, Social Security kicks in. Let's say $45,000 combined, both of you having contributed your whole careers. Your portfolio at that point needs to cover about $115,000 a year gross. $3.75 million at 4.7% generates $176,000 a year. You have meaningful buffer above your actual spending requirement. You do not need $7 million. You do not need to work until 62. You need to keep doing exactly what you are already doing for 10 more years, and then the math is finished. The gauge hits green at 55. And every single year past that point that you are still working, you are pumping additional pressure into a tank that is already exactly where it needs to be. Now, I have to stop for a second because there's a guy I've been watching in an early retirement forum for about 2 years. His original target was $4 million. He hit $4 million and revised it to 6 because he discovered that geographic arbitrage might not be permanent. He hit 6 and moved it to 9 after reading something about long-term care costs. He is currently sitting at $6 million. His new number is $12 million because, direct quote, who knows what healthcare looks like in 40 years. His actual monthly spending is $6,000 a month. He is a single person spending $6,000 a month who has built an increasingly elaborate mathematical architecture justifying his inability to stop working. When someone in the comments gently suggested he might want to talk to a therapist, he responded with a 17-paragraph thread on Monte Carlo simulation methodology. His gauge has been in the green for years. He is standing in front of it, staring at the dial, waiting for a feeling that the dial does not produce, because it was never a dial problem. Now, let me come back to Marcus, because his numbers are finished, and I think this is going to land differently than he expects. Marcus is 52, $3.2 million saved, monthly spend of about $9,000, $108,000 a year. He and his wife are targeting 62 as their retirement date, which gives us a 10-year bridge. To cover $108,000 after taxes at roughly a 27% effective rate, he needs about $148,000 a year in gross income. At a 9% withdrawal over 10 years, his bridge fund needs to be about $1.65 million. He allocates $1.65 million to Tank 1. The remaining $1.55 million goes into Tank 2, grows at 6% for 10 years, and reaches approximately $2.78 million by age 62. Social Security kicks in. Both spouses with modest contribution histories. Let's model $35,000 combined per year. His portfolio now needs to cover about $113,000 gross annually. $2.78 million at 4.7% generates $130,000 a year. With buffer. Marcus, you are done. You have been done for at least a year, possibly longer. The $5 million number in your head is not a retirement calculation. It is a feeling wearing the costume of prudence. The gauge is in the green. The machine is running. You are adding pressure to a system that is already operating exactly as it should. And the cost of that additional pressure is measured in years. Your years. And here is the insight this entire video has been building toward. It applies to Marcus, it applies to the forum guy, it applies to the couple in Austin, it applies to Patricia before she trusted the math, and it probably applies to at least a few of you watching this right now. There's a mechanism in behavioral economics called hedonic adaptation. The brain normalizes any new level of wealth or security within weeks and then immediately starts scanning for what's still missing. It's why a salary increase feels wonderful for about a month before it quietly becomes the new baseline. It's why the thing you buy doesn't transform your life the way you thought it would. In retirement planning, it shows up as an endlessly moving goalpost. I'll feel safe at 3 million. Then at 3 million, I'll feel safe at 5 million. Then at 5 million. Actually, 8 million is probably more comfortable. The number grows, but the feeling never arrives, because the feeling was never about the number. The number is a proxy for a question you haven't answered yet. What do you actually want your life to look like? The hedge fund manager in Greenwich answered that question. He decided what his life was supposed to look like. He ran the math to confirm it could be supported. He confirmed that it could, and he stopped. He didn't wait for a feeling of safety to arrive as a sensation. He trusted the math as a foundation and stopped pumping. The couple in Austin has not answered the question. When we have 15 million, then we'll figure out what we actually want. But the 15 million was never derived from any analysis of the life they want. It is a large, round, safe-feeling number that absolves them from having to answer a much harder question, which is, what do I want to be doing at 9 in the morning on a Tuesday in retirement? A larger portfolio does not resolve that question. It just makes the question more expensive to avoid. Here's what you lose by operating with the wrong number, specifically, concretely, in a way you cannot recover. If your real portfolio target, based on your actual spending and your real Social Security estimate, is $4 million, and you reach $4 million at 60, but you believe you need $8 million, you will keep working until you hit $8 million. For most people in that situation, that is another 5 to 8 years of work. The years between 60 and 68 are, according to every major study on retiree health, the healthiest years of retirement you will ever have. Your mobility is at its peak. Your cognitive engagement is at its peak. Your energy is at its peak. And every single one of those years you spent at a job you were finished with, because of a number that was built to inflate your anxiety rather than describe your actual life, is not recoverable. Not at 80, not at 75, not ever. That is not a philosophical loss. It is a practical, permanent, quantifiable one. 5 years of your best retirement years spent in an office because someone had a fee structure that rewarded your uncertainty. So here are the 3 practical takeaways, specific to this math, not generic retirement advice. First, calculate your actual monthly burn rate for the last 6 consecutive months. Pull every bank statement, every credit card statement, every subscription you forgot about, every cash transaction you can account for. Add up every category. Do not estimate from memory. Research consistently shows people underestimate their real spending by 30 to 40%. Your retirement number is not an abstract figure. It is a direct multiple of your specific monthly spend, adjusted for taxes and Social Security. If you don't know your actual spend within 5% accuracy, your retirement calculation is not a calculation. It is a guess wearing a spreadsheet. The denominator determines the entire equation. Second, log into ssa.gov right now. Authenticate your account. Pull your personalized benefit estimate at your specific target retirement age. Write the actual number down, not the national average you've seen cited in articles, but your number based on your actual earnings history. Your Social Security benefit is not a rounding error in this math. A combined spousal benefit of $45,000 to $72,000 a year is, at a 4.7% withdrawal rate, the equivalent of $1 to $1.5 million of portfolio you never have to build. Most people I've spoken to underestimate their own Social Security benefit by 30 to 40%, which means they are overestimating their required portfolio by hundreds of thousands of dollars, sometimes over $1 million. One number, one login, potentially shaves a year or more off your timeline. Third, if you are within 15 years of your target retirement date, start separating your portfolio into the two tanks. A bridge fund for the pre-Social Security window, a long-term fund for everything after. Model them with different withdrawal rates, different allocations, different time horizons. The bridge fund is not a retirement portfolio. It is a de-accumulation account with a finite endpoint, and it supports a withdrawal rate roughly double what you would apply to an indefinite horizon. Running both tanks as one undifferentiated pool forces you to use conservative, infinite horizon math on money that has a defined 10-year job. That structural mistake alone adds hundreds of thousands of dollars to your perceived target, and it quietly adds years to how long people feel they need to keep working. Almost no financial advisor will explain this to you, because the moment the conversation stops being about building wealth and starts being about distributing it, it becomes a different skill set, and a considerably less profitable one. The pressure gauge is the whole game. The green zone is real, it is achievable, and it is significantly closer than the number someone else put in your head, unless that number came from your own math, which it almost certainly didn't. Most of you are going to watch this video, absorb the math, and then find a reason it doesn't quite apply to your specific situation. The brain is very good at protecting its own anxiety. That's fine. At least now you know what the gauge looks like when it's green. At least now, the next time you reach for a bigger number, you'll know where the bigger number came from and whose machine it was built to serve. You do not need more than $3 million. Most of you don't even need that. The number has been following you around for years, whispering that it isn't enough yet, and the only reason it has that power over you is that nobody ever showed you what enough actually looks like when you run the real arithmetic against your real life. Now you've seen it. I'll see you in the next one.